Hello, and welcome to the Self-Care with Herbs segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I'm your host, Jess Bosker, naturopath, herbalist, and medicine maker. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Banjalang people, the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, come along and join me each month for beautiful conversations with guests from across the country, exploring ways we can weave plant medicine into our days to enrich our experience of self-care, sharing routines, rituals, and recipes for elevating mind, body, and spirit. Hayley Agnew, a mischievous wearer of mismatched earrings, is also a naturopath, Bowen therapist, and yoga teacher who thrives on human and nature connection. She loves, lives, and works in regional South Australia and weaves her magic from her clinic, Our Healing Place. During this episode, we chat about self-care being a responsibility to ourselves that requires a loving discipline and a belief in ourselves being worthy of care, and meeting the resistance that often arises when we're building a new way of doing and being. Hayley shares her deep connection with rose and the beautiful wisdom this plant has shared with her throughout her life about healthy boundaries and renewal and strength. Another favourite Hayley speaks about is Shatavari, traditionally a women's herb. I love her take on the more energetic aspects of this plant. We bring in motherwort and calendula and circle back to a more in-depth dive into rose medicine. There's so many gems in this one. I can't wait for you to listen in. Hi, Hayley, and welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you this morning. Thank you so much for making space for this.
Thank you for asking, Jess. It's the first podcast I've ever been on, so there we go.
Oh, that's exciting. What an honour to have you here. We really don't know each other that well. We crossed paths through the beautiful Estuary Learning Group, and we've just discovered we have a mutual friend, which is beautiful as well. But I'd really love to get to know a little bit about your story, Hayley. Obviously, the theme of this podcast is all about herbs and self-care, but I'd really love to hear about how you got to where you are now, where those threads kind of came together with plant medicine and herbs and all of the things that you bring together today in your practice.
Yeah. Such a good question to start with. And I think I'd have to start with the fact I was brought up in a regional area and I grew up on a farm. And so there's an intrinsic connection to nature that happens naturally in that environment. You're very connected. You've got to feed animals. Animals live and die. My mum always had a very big garden. She was a really keen gardener and still is. We grew most of our food. We ate meat off the property. So I recognise now, looking back, that the baseline I had, growing up was actually quite rare. And just so valuable, I think, now. Like, I remember living in the city, studying to be a naturopath, ironically, and just being like flabbergasted at the disconnect, people complaining about rain or, whatever it was. And I'd be thinking, but we're in a drought. Why are you complaining? So I think definitely it started there. And I was a very sensitive child. I think I was quite shy. And I used to love just going, we had and still have cypress trees all along our driveway to the farm. And I would go and just climb the trees and sit in the trees and just, be that's one of my earliest memories, being out at the farm. And one thing I did want to share actually is we used to have Uncle Toby's muesli when we were kids, and at one stage they had they had seed packets in the cereal boxes, and I planted, I don't remember exactly what age I was, I planted a lemon scented gum, which isn't meant to really grow in our area. It's not kind of native to this region. It tends to grow a bit higher, but that gum grew and is now a massive towering kind of key feature of the back garden.
Wow.
And, and it's funny, Mum said, they're not even meant to grow here. But yeah, it's just like funny how, just some plants for whatever reason, or like, and I remember specifically planting it. I was so excited, this little seed out of the cereal box. And he's now this, massive tree in the backyard.
How beautiful. So that a really strong connection early on, and on reflection, realizing that was such a great place to start from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
So
I think as well, you grow away and come back. You kind of, like you realize as you get older, and, you've got my own child now, and you start to kind of go, oh, wow, gosh, I was lucky to have that as my baseline.
Isn't it interesting, that reflection that, you may not have recognized the value of that connection to the land, knowing where your food came from, all that beautiful local produce, and then going away and, maybe spending time only being able to shop at a supermarket and looking back going, wow, this everybody doesn't have this.
No, they don't. And like we used to go down, like we'd go take a bucket to the dairy down the road and fill it up, bring just fresh milk back. And the first time I had milk out of a carton was at my grandmother's house. And I was like, Mum, what's wrong with this milk? Like,
this is gross.
I've done something to it.
Oh, yes, they have.
Yes, I have. I mean, that's highly legal now. But anyway, that's what we did. And, Dad would scoop the cream off, and so we're very, very blessed to have that baseline. Yeah.
And in terms of health and well-being, was there a tendency to look beyond the pharmaceuticals early on, or did that come later?
Yeah, definitely. My dad was always very, natural medicine minded. Well, both my mum and dad really. Like we were taken to chiropractors from a very young age rather than to the doctor. My grandmother was, she was always like, she was brewing kombucha before, anyone was doing it. And, I remember like Dad brewing kombucha when we were kids, and, different things like that. So there was always that tendency, definitely. And they're still very much minded in that way. Mind you, I remember Dad once, he read in the paper, what was the top, I think it was like, what's the top paid occupation or something? And at the time it was a pharmacist. And Dad was like, oh, you should be a pharmacist. They make really good money. And then, of course, I went on to be a naturopath.
The other side.
It's kind of like the polar opposite of it. Anyway.
Absolutely. And so do you think, Hayley, it was kind of that upbringing and always having that in the background of this is how you look after yourself was what kind of led you towards naturopathy, or was there other things along the way that kind of forged that path?
I definitely think so. I also did work experience with a chiropractor when I was in year 10, and I hadn't really heard of naturopathy then. Like that was back, I graduated in the year 2000. So that was in the 90s where, there's no social media or, people didn't really know what a naturopath was. But she chatted to me about a lot of different options in natural medicine. Like she was like, look, you don't even have to be a chiropractor. She's like, you could do kinesiology and you could do these. And she talked to me just about all these things. And so then I went off on my own tangent, kind of researching and learning, and ended up kind of landing on naturopathy. Picked all my subjects at school to do that. And then I actually did really well in year 12, could get into naturopathy, but then chose to do teaching for a year because at the time it was a very, there was no job at the end of it necessarily unless you chose to work for yourself. I think now there's lots of different ways a naturopath can go because it was still such a kind of unknown. I'd met one naturopath in my life, especially in this region. It's not a hugely people are how do I say it? It's a very liberal, strong, very traditional. You just go to the doctor. There's we had one naturopath for a long time, and then. There's just usually just one. It's we've got a couple of younger girls coming through, which is so good. But yeah, it's not been, whereas where you are, I know there's lots of, natural medicine options and naturopaths and kinesiologists and body workers and
Yeah.
we've, not got as much variety and opportunity. Yeah,
So
but
that must have felt quite risky, kind of, coming out of school going,
it definitely
oh,
felt
yeah.
risky when but I did the year of teaching and was like, ugh, I can't imagine I could see myself doing it, but I was just like, this is not going to bring me the joy that I think natural medicine will. I've just got to bite the bullet and do it. So,
and so after that, you transferred over.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And I know that you have lots of different modalities that you bring into your naturopathic practice. How have those other modalities kind of made their way into your life and your practice?
So I think, we all are on our own search, depending on the challenges we have in our own lives and, different things. And I've always been very active, netball, basketball, running. And I had a knee injury where I needed an ACL reconstruction. And so I couldn't run, I couldn't play netball, I couldn't play basketball. And so that led me to start going to a yoga class that I quite quickly fell in love with. But at the time I had to travel like 50 Ks to go to class. And so I started kind of thinking about, maybe that could be something I could offer. But then I moved back to the city probably not that long after that. And then I was able to go to a studio. I didn't really think about it again for another couple of years until I kind of moved back to the country. And then I was like, and by that stage I'd kind of developed a pretty consistent, disciplined practice. And I was like, well, maybe this is something I could offer. And so that brought in the yoga piece. And then at the same time, I moved home and I started working out of a chiropractic center. And that particular chiropractor does a lot of Bowen. And so he encouraged me to do my Bowen training as well. And and so that's how that happened. I actually ended up contacting Bowtech, and they said, if you can get a group together, we'll send someone to your region. And we did. So we actually had a group that learnt Bowen from my house. This lady would come and stay. I think there was 7 or 8 of us. And we went through the Cert 4 anyway initially. And and it just, I feel like those two things complement naturopathy well. Like sometimes people come in and you'd like, I just need to release your shoulders or your low back, or, they need some touch. They actually need some, And so, sometimes it's just like, that's what you need today. Jump on the table sort of thing.
Isn't it beautiful to be able
the yoga, I just think for me has helped me really come back into my body. And when my body is speaking to me, I had a chronic back pain issue for about 8 years. And really I had to change my practice, but it's a big, it's that listening, that presence. How can I be with my body today? What's going on now? What's medicine for me today, rather than what I think I want to do or what I should be doing. What is the true medicine? And yoga for me really helps me kind of sink into that more embodied listening. So that was a bit of a long-winded answer, Jess.
No, that was beautiful, Hayley. And I love that you can then prescribe those things to clients. You're not only prescribing, not only are you listening and hearing their story, being able to prescribe herbs and supplements if needed and dietary changes, but then there's that other layer of helping them to listen into their bodies, releasing tension when it's needed. It's just looking even fuller at the whole person.
Yeah. I feel, I think it's what felt for me like my practice needed that extra layer. And I was at that cusp. I'm assuming, Jess, you probably studied around the same time I did.
A little bit later, yeah.
A little bit later, where it was like naturopathy's become this very, evidence-based, science-driven degree, which I think is excellent, and we need that, and that's got a lot of merit. But there's layers I feel like we've lost our heart and our origins, and that deep ancestral wisdom and practice that used to be, that was just what naturopathy was. They were like the village medicine woman, or the herb lady down the road that, go and see, she would have this. It's like, so we're trying to bridge these two worlds in some ways. And I suppose I initially went very much down that scientific path. And really it's only been in the last probably 5 or 6 years where I've really lent more into the energetics and plant spirit medicine, and just because I didn't have a teacher. And it wasn't until I was put in contact with Jackie Bushell that then, has led me to meet all these other women. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I found my people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it all unfolds. But I think, if I'd had that experience earlier on in my career, I probably wouldn't have looked to the Bowen or the yoga in the same way for that deeper listening and receptivity and reciprocity kind of piece. Whereas then I kind of could land back into the herbal medicine side, and it was like, I've got all these kind of skills and somatic practices and things that lend themselves so beautifully to, being with the plants and plant medicine, and, the subtleties of how that relationship can play out. So I think, as always, it works out in the perfect way for you.
That's right. Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that deepening relationship with the herbs has evolved over the last 5 or so years.
It probably started, I became a single mum, and so I went and moved into what was my new home with an 18-month-old, and, and I felt pretty low. It was probably the lowest I'd ever been. I felt like I'd failed at pretty much everything. I was failing as a mother. I was failing as a businesswoman. I was failing as a partner. I was failing as a daughter. Like nothing, I felt like nothing I was doing was succeeding. Anyway, I managed to scrape together the money to buy this house, which I also thought was beyond me. Like I was like, who do I think I am to even do this? Am I going to be able to manage this? And it was actually my dad that said to me, I think he said something like, you're worthy of this. You can do this. And it really, those words hit me at that moment in time. I remember we were standing in the backyard of my home, which has got these beautiful big trees. And, I fell in love with the garden really before I fell in love with the house. And he was like, you're worthy of this. Like, you can do this. And I really needed to hear it at that moment. And then that led me to now I had a garden to tend. And, it was lined with roses in the front garden, and it had this massive jasmine plant that you'd, hop out of the car and it would literally hit you, like getting your attention. And so that just unwound slowly. And then, rose medicine is such deep medicine for me. Because it's the softness and the love and like kind of those obvious layers that we see and think of when we think of a rose and rose petals. But it's so much about healthy boundaries and strength and renewal and regeneration. Like you can prune a rose back hard and she will just come back stronger. Like,
yes.
So it's, it's unfolded just over time. And, you plant something new, like, you plant a new plant being, and then you just kind of, make a tea, or you have a taste, or you work out the conditions that particular herb likes. Does it like a bit dry soil? Does it like more water? Does it need a bit more sun? Like you learn through that practical just unfolding of life, or the failing of, oh shit, I planted that and it died.
Yes. That's not one for here.
I killed it with too much love, or I killed it with, whatever it is. Like,
yes.
That really, I'm a chop wood, carry water kind of woman. And so like that real practical, in some ways menial, aspect of just tending plants and tending a garden. That's a big teacher. And then I really, Jackie Bushell came into my life at a really just perfect time. And she has this incredible way of just allowing you to go on a journey with a plant without, she never gives you the answer, but she just guides you to where you need to be. And it's, And so, that's definitely been a helpful guide for me as well.
How have you found that deepening relationship with the herbs has changed the way that you practice?
Yeah, quite a bit. Well, lots in some ways and less in others. Like I'll do more drop dosing and things now, which I was never trained in that when I did my initial herbal training. It was kind of all that, therapeutic dose range kind of practice. Whereas now, and it depends on the client. Some people are definitely more sensitive and will be more responsive to that more energetic or drop dosing kind of prescription. But it's changed as well. Like even if I'm prescribing, say, a supplement's got, multiple herbs in it, I'm thinking more about, the spirit of the herb and the energetics and the, rather than just like, oh, this is for this, which, I think is a trap that we can fall into, especially if people come in and they're like, oh, I have, X disease or whatever it is. And then, there's all these protocols that are kind of pushed onto us of like, this is what you have to do and this is what the evidence says and and I think it's really important to hold that, but to be like, okay, but who's this person sitting in front of me? What's their story? What do they really need? What's the body actually really trying to show us or say? And because I think you can still potentially use something that's like a supplement with a deeper understanding. You'll pick better.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of helps you narrow down, doesn't it? Like you kind of have all of these options in front of you. And if you're connecting the plants with the herbs in a more kind of spiritual way, it's just another tool in helping you make that selection and connecting the person with that plant in a more full way.
And as well, you can say, like, this has got this in it and this is what it does. Like in the science, but this is also the energetics and this is what, can start to unfold. And so just be curious around that, and it's like, so you're opening up that kind of, potential for a different way of sensing with your client. And then that just leads, I think,
I don't know about you, Hayley, but I find when I have those conversations with clients, it lights up so many more light bulbs in their heads about what this medicine will do for them when you kind of lean into those things that you were talking about with Rose and, maybe you're speaking about boundaries and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're speaking my language. This is going to start working before I even start putting it in my mouth.
That's right. And then already that's right. The energetics have changed. They're already like, oh, okay. Then
you spoke
they make a decision and they say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Or,
that's it.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
You spoke about Rose. Are there any other plants that you have happening in your space at the moment?
Mugwort for me is always around, kind of buzzes in and out, but it's kind of a fairly steady presence. I've got mugwort planted in the planter box right at the front of my clinic. And it's, definitely kind of an ever-present, guide. Shatavari for me actually has been a plant that's come in and out, and I don't have it growing. I've never tried. I probably should now that I'm saying that. But it's something I've just drop dosed myself on and off over the last couple of years, or just having a tea, and it's such a gentle, like a wellspring, like fills you up energetically. Like, and I know we think of it as a women's herb and we think of it for libido or menopause or whatever, but I don't know, it's so much more to that. It's, yeah, like it builds that, to me, that beautiful yin energy of like calm and like, you know, that long term, like I'm revitalized, like I'm not, yeah. And then, you know, the fluidity and flow, it's like that watery nature of just balancing all of that in the body. And I just, yeah, Shatavari definitely for me at the moment is kind of in that most obvious layer of my awareness. So
I love how
yeah.
you've looked at that balancing, which is what we often think of Shatavari for, like balancing hormones. But I love how you've kind of taken it to that next level of just balance in general and, you know, bringing flow and
Yeah, like that. And it's like all the mucous membranes get kind of nourished and, you know, suddenly you're moving with a bit more fluidity and yeah, it's just, yeah, she's become one of, I don't know why I call her a she. Shatavari has become one of my favorites. So
allies. Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Now, obviously the theme of this podcast is self-care and I'd love to get into kind of the nitty-gritty of that a little bit further down the track. But just to start with, what's kind of your overarching idea of what self-care means to you?
I think it's come to mean like self-responsibility in a lot of ways. I think self-care, like a lot of stuff, you know, in our culture has been turned into like something we can sell. And while it can, you know, it can be, oh, I'm going to treat myself to a massage or whatever, mostly it's actually often making the choice to do what can feel hard in the moment. And that might be preparing a healthy meal. It might be getting yourself to a yoga class or a gym or a walk or, you know, whatever it might be. So it's like a loving discipline to me, self-care. Because if we're not doing it for ourselves, then someone else is probably going to have to pick up the pieces, you know, at some point. And so I think it's, you know, it's that radical responsibility of like, no, I'm worthy to be looked after and I'm going to look after myself and I'm going to model that for my children so that that's what they grow up to know. Like that's what we do. We've got to move our bodies and we've got to nourish ourselves well. We've got to get out in the sun and, you know, they're in many ways basic human things, but our, you know, our overarching culture is so strong and so overwhelming and wants to push people away from that. And it wants to push people into like, oh, just take the pharmaceutical or, you know, like, oh, you know, it's don't worry if it's too hard, you don't have to do that. And that's I think a bit of a flipped perception of what self-care, could mean.
I love it.
Really, more about self-responsibility and sovereignty than it is about this kind of, you know, cushy, like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, eat whatever or, and it can be like, self-care could be, you know, a glass of wine with your best friend on a Friday night, like absolutely. But I think most of the time it's like, well, what is true medicine for me? And I've got to have the loving discipline to show up and do it.
I love that, Hayley, because often we're sold this idea that self-care is all this softness and, you know, treating ourselves and all those yummy, delicious things, which are beautiful and lovely. And often we do let those slide. But as you said, like it's the day-to-day decisions that we make and commitments that we make that kind of cement those anchors in place.
Yeah. And it can, of course it can be those things. It just can't be those things all the time.
That's right.
But unfortunately, like you can't sell someone that, you know, it's like that loving discipline or like devotion, whatever you want to call it. It's like, yes, that's just something you got to do. It's like, again, it's like chop wood, carry water. I'm just going to do the next thing.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
They're conversations that I find myself having often with clients. You know, I'm the little person on your shoulder helping you commit to those things that are often hard, or it's the commitment that can be really hard and the consistency because, you know, we're told that one-off massage is all we need.
Yeah, that's right. I often talk to clients. I said, like, you're going to meet resistance. Like that is undeniable. I was like, I meet resistance. Like for me, like to get up really early, say to go to a Pilates or yoga class, that's hard. Like that alarm goes off and there's a part of me that's like, oh, nah, I just want to go back to sleep. But I've trained myself and practiced enough to remind that undisciplined part of me or whatever it is that like that's a story that you can tell yourself. But you know that if you get up and do it, you're going to feel better. Because it's not like, you know, if we get up and do it, we turn around and go, oh, I wish I didn't do that. No. We always go, oh, thank God I did. I'm so glad I did that this morning. Like, because you feel so much better.
Yes.
So it's like I always say to people, like, meet the resistance, like recognize it. Like it's going to be there. And just be like, yeah, and that's an old story. Yeah. I'm building a new way of being.
Yes.
Like, and I'm just practicing that, you know, as consistently as I can. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that resistance goes away, but
I don't think so.
I
don't think so. And I think yeah, I think it's important that people recognize that, you know, that resistance may not ever go away.
No.
And so that's why the commitment can be harder. And it's again, that's what you just said, you know, that's a story.
Yeah.
And we can choose a different one. At times when you haven't been able to be consistent, or maybe you haven't had as strong a self-regulation as you can, what sorts of whispers do you start to hear from your body, from your mind, that kind of say, hey, Hayley, come on?
That's a really good question. Pain has been quite a big teacher for me, especially over the last, say, 8 to 10 years. I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that I grew up playing a lot of sport, and so I developed a sense of discipline quite young. And that has like lent itself for me to be able to, like, I can show up and do a yoga practice. I can show up and make sure I'm moving. Like I can do those things quite well, sometimes actually too much. Like for me, sometimes I actually have to learn to soften the edges of that and go, actually, no, Hayley, you need to take a rest. So like, but pain showed up and it was very much, I had to really learn the balance of both, because I had a stage where I felt like I couldn't win. I was in pain if I rested. I was in pain if I was doing stuff. And so I had to find a balance of like, well, I've got to be moving. I don't want to lose strength and just get worse and worse and worse. And then I think that led me to, you know, I suppose uncover or try different modalities, try different things. Yeah. So pain will definitely be one, and probably fatigue is the other. Like I can have that tendency to just push through. I've definitely, I'm a recovering perfectionist, I'll say. Like, where, you know, like I used to be like, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be done absolutely right. And I think underneath that inherently is the belief of like, I'm not worthy unless, you know, I'm doing all the things, I'm being all the things. And so it's like coming back to that reminder of like, no, I'm still worthy even if I rest. I'm still worthy even if I don't get all of the things done, or the house is a mess, or I don't know, I'm late to my son's basketball, whatever it might be. So, yeah, probably pain and fatigue will be the things that show up. And then depending on what that is will be depending on how I need to adjust, you know, what I'm doing.
Two big ones, and I imagine that they're often barriers to self-care as well. You know, they're things that are kind of preventing you from investing in self-care. I'm wondering, we've spoken about the sort of big overarching idea of self-care, and that self-regulation and consistency and committing to ourselves. I'd love to delve now into some of the smaller kind of day-to-day practices that make up that big commitment, and how plants find their way into your day, and what other sort of rituals you have that help you feel good.
Yeah. Cups of tea.
Yes.
As simple as that sounds. I light a lot of candles, like sometimes with specific intentions, sometimes simply just because it feels nice and it creates a nice feeling in the house, especially in winter. And then like it's funny for me, it can change day to day.
Yeah.
Like some mornings it will be like a stretch or a bit of a yoga practice, but some days it'll be like I need to make sure I carve out just a little bit of time to read or to journal or to, whatever it is. But you're probably most consistently, it's like, just the ritual of, boiling the kettle, making a cuppa, sitting down to drink it, like not that trap of like, oh, I'll just take it with me and I'll kind of drink it on the go. But to be like, no, I'm gonna sit. And I always now, as a younger practitioner, sometimes I would either give myself a very short lunch break or sometimes not even take a lunch break. Whereas now I always take a lunch break.
Yes.
And generally I'll make sure I sit outside to eat it. So, I think simple things like that.
Yeah, tie your day together.
It doesn't have to be big stuff. It can just be those really, kind of simple things.
Since feeling more connected with the plants and kind of having those spiritual connections, do you find yourself, in your day-to-day having those moments with the plants where you kind of, maybe you have that connection with Rose on the way in the door, or, there's something else happening in the garden and you just take a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you've got a garden, or like I've only got quite a small garden really, like different things will kind of demand your awareness at different times. And like I'm always trying to be present enough to listen. Like I think there can be that tendency to just rush. And, especially, when you've got kids or, you've got a full day of clients and you're like, you've got a bit of a timeline, but like, calendula always pops up in my garden. And even to the point, like I've got rock all on my driveway and she has popped up like through the rock right by my clinic door. And like in the middle of winter, might I add, with these bright yellow flowers.
Wow.
Just being like, look at me. Like,
yes.
Look at this.
Yes.
Like, that's like such, in some ways I'm like, wow, she's really calling for my attention. But, and then some, like it's recently for rosemary because it's been in flower. And so the bees are like right in there. And even in winter, it's been like, wow, like there's so much aliveness just right here by the, plain old rosemary. Like,
so beautiful.
So much happening.
Yes.
And I've got chickens like in the backyard. Often I just sit with my chickens in my lunch break.
Are they beautiful?
Oh, they're so gorgeous.
So good.
They've started jumping up on my lap and they haven't been the friendliest chooks. They refused to ever go in their coop, so they just roost in the bush and tree. But they've worked out that I feed them, and perhaps I'm not that bad, so maybe they can just sit on my lap every now and then.
Oh dear! So you spoke about Shatavari and working with Shatavari on that energetic level. Is there any other herbs that you're working with personally at the moment that have been feeling really good?
I think motherwort has come in quite a bit, only really the last couple of weeks. She kind of floats in and out pretty consistently for me. I planted like this tiny herb and now I have a bed, like a bed of motherwort.
Oh, how magical.
Yeah, and same thing, she like dies off and then just comes back. Like you think, oh gosh, that's it, that's done. And then the next season it's like, whoa, I've got so much motherwort, I barely know what to do with it.
Tell us what you love about motherwort.
I love that it's that reminder of, like, to me, it's because motherwort is so much about support to me, and like, it's that, it's a herb you give when someone needs a hug, or it's herb for deep grief, or, brokenheartedness, if I feel so held when I'm working with that energy of like there's like this sense of I've got your back, which is really, it's beautiful. And, and we all feel like that at times.
Yes.
Like we all yearn for that support. And, and nature provides that so just beautifully we don't have to ask. Like, so gracious and abundant and, always offering to us. And it's, and I think it's having enough presence to notice and to slow down. Like, that's such a big repeating lesson for me, just, to be slow, like,
yes,
because the world wants us to rush. The world wants, the hustle culture is hardcore. Everything is money driven. Everything is hustle, more, like, and so it's like it's a radical act to go, no, I'm actually going to go slower.
Yes. Yeah.
Or I'm going to turn the phone off for a whole day.
Yeah, that's an act of rebellion right there.
Total act of rebellion. It's so good. Like, so I think,
I know.
And that's definitely a lesson. I can get caught up, or I have the tendency to like I'll work hard to really create space and then inadvertently fill it up. And then I'm like, why am I so tired? Why is my back pain come back? And then I'm like, oh, you haven't stopped for, 2 weeks. And then it's like, slow down. Just,
Yes. Yeah. I know that a big part of your practice is holding space for people to share their stories, and how hearing their stories is such a big part of you working with them. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's not something that initially was intentional for me. Like, it's really unfolded in that way, because I think, most people when they come to see a naturopath are coming because they've been everywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's not working, or, they're at their wit's end, and they've been rushed through, not listened to, dismissed, gaslit, and so listening to someone's story in itself is quite healing, or just giving someone the space to say, this is what's happened. Like, because and I deliberately, like, I have spacious time for my consults. I'm not like a short consult kind of worker. Like, I want to feel like we have time and space to let the story unfold. And I think it's something I've got better at. It's like, and I think if I can simply offer my full presence and my attention to someone while they're here, even if I don't give them any herbs, even if I don't give them any dietary change, even like that in itself already starts to shift things. For someone to feel seen and heard, I think is a really powerful thing. And particularly now, in the way our health system is set up, people don't get that anymore. They feel unseen, and they feel rushed, and and often not listened to. So that's definitely something I felt was really important. And it's just amazing, I think, as well. Like, I'm always so humbled and just grateful of what people share. Like,
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes.
And the depth of people's stories, and, experience, and people surprise you like all the time. And I love that. Like I just like it lights me up as well. It lights me up, probably just as much. So I feel like it's such a gift to be able to hold that space and to just let someone be heard. It's a gift to the giver. It works both ways. It's that reciprocal nature of humanness, really. Yeah.
I totally agree, Hayley. I think sometimes even when people are booking an appointment, my initials are 90 minutes. And I think even seeing on the booking form that that's 90 minutes that they've set aside for themselves, the unraveling begins before they even come.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think too, we're lucky that we have that time and that people use that time to tell their stories, because it then helps us to hear the things that are important for us in terms of connecting them with the herbs and in that kind of deeper way. If we were only able to hear a really little surface level part of this person, it's as you say, we can only then match up the physical symptoms of what they're experiencing to that herb that, is what we may have started out with. But when you hear those full and deep stories and you start to hear some of the things that they've experienced, coming back to Rose, maybe that heart medicine is what they need, or motherwort, and they've just been caring for everybody and they just need that big warm hug of their own. I just think it's such a beautiful way for that web to be woven.
Yeah. And it's such a it's a weaver of community as well. Like when we know each other's stories, there's a depth of care that unfolds that's different. And that I think, is missing from our overculture in, or like in general, like, and so I just think it's important.
We're very lucky. We've heard some of the connections that you have with herbs and how you've been able to build on those working with teachers like Jackie Bushell. I'm wondering, this is a really tricky one for people that work with plants, but what plant do you feel like you have the deepest connection with at the moment, and why would that be?
Oh, like as in right at the moment?
Either right now or that has had a really deep connection in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think Rose, honestly, because it's interesting how that experience has changed and evolved, and how depending on what I needed to kind of be learning or listening to at the time, like that medicine changed and shifted. And it's, because Rose is a very gentle, slow medicine, like it's this just very great, or for me, it's been very just gradual. And, I'm just trying to think, like it shows up more like there's a lot more softness now. And it's like that in some ways it's like I had to learn initially to have stronger boundaries and to really, protect my energy and to be clear. And now it's like I can soften again. It's like the boundaries are clear, the structure is there, and now that softness can come back in. And like it's such a gentle feeling for me, that medicine. It's like this, like it's a different quality than motherwort. But in my body, it feels like softness and like nearly like a rotation of the spine, like the spine can flow. So that's part of the way herbs kind of work, or my body works with herbs, is I'll have a physical like feeling.
Yes. And
so Rose has that quality to me when like kind of it's most present. Yeah.
Can you think back to what some of your early experiences with rose medicine were like and how different they are now?
So initially, like, it was, and like very much like, take notice, like, come on, you need to notice me, like initially, like, and it took me probably like a couple of years to be like, oh, like I need to make like just a simple elixir out of my rose petals that are blooming in my garden in spring. And then, and then it's that, you start ingesting the medicine, and then life gives you opportunities to put into practice, what the plant's inviting you to kind of learn. And that for me was definitely around, strong boundaries with men in particular, like, and not letting myself be manipulated, or, like I'd settle like, no, well, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And then, compromise that for someone instead of being like, no, that's not okay. I'm not putting up with that. And it took me a while to learn that, because I've got this tendency to people please and to keep, everyone else comfortable, and my needs don't matter. But it's like, it was like that. No, stand up, be strong in your boundaries. Like it was kind of it wasn't harsh. It was still like gentle, but it was like, the quality has changed for me. Whereas it's like now, like my boundaries are very strong. Like yes. I'm really clear.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now we can really soften and love and play, and like,
beautiful.
It's like, yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. It really does. It's kind of the two different spectrums of rose, the thorn reminding you, little nudge, where's those boundaries? Hold. But you've learnt that lesson. Yeah. You've got that strong, and now that softness is really blossoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like to use rose medicine these days? In terms of, do you sit with the plant? Do you take her internally?
A bit of both. Bit of both. So, I'll like just like I generally each year I'll make like just an elixir with the petals from my garden, and so then I'll drop dose that sometimes, depending on whether I'm feeling like it kind of in that most obvious layer or whether I'm not. Sometimes it will just be like, picking a rose and having a stem in the house. Like, or rose petals in the bath I love that, because it's then you just feel, held by the medicine of the plant. So things like that. It doesn't necessarily look one way for me. Like it'll change. And sometimes I'll be more particular and be like, okay, I'm actually going to do like a bit more of a meditation journey with rose and just see what comes up. And sometimes like rose will show up, in clinic. Like, again, it's a quality I feel in my body. And so like I get a sensation of light, and rose is like this pinkish energy in my body, and then it's based in like kind of the womb, heart, and my spine. It's like this circular rising quality, and sometimes that be for me. Sometimes it might be. It's probably for the person on the table as well. So like, it'll just kind of show up, and I'll be like, oh, kind of, where is this here? Interesting. And so, then it'll be, and it, like, depending on the person, I may say something to them, I may not. Like, because, you don't want to freak people out. Some people are kind of more open to that sort of thing than others.
Yes.
And then and then it's a different quality. Like if mugwort shows up, like, it's a real snake spine feeling for me, like a rising energy. And a really green yellow light, like completely different. Like, and I'm always like, oh, okay. Like, so the quality in my body is literally it's like, and I've come to recognize that those things were happening for quite a while and I didn't actually know what they were. And then, I did some practices with Jackie Bushell actually. And I was like, oh, that's mugwort. Oh, that's rose. Like, so there's just a handful that show up like that. And it's like, oh, okay. So I'm actually having this whole body experience of this plant, yeah.
I love that this has come out, Hayley, because it was actually a question I had about whether your movement practice facilitates that connection with the herbs, and it sounds like it really does.
Yeah, it does. It does. So it's, and look, I feel like I'm only just like I've only recognized those particular kind of plant spirits showing up in that particular way over the last 12 months. Like the feelings were happening before that, but I didn't put two and two together, even though now looking back, I'm kind of like, oh, well, that seems kind of obvious. But it took me a while to really recognize and go, oh, okay, this is mugwort. This is the mugwort feeling in my body. Like everyone would have their own experience. And like, oh, this is the rose feeling. And this is this is the rose color. And it's interesting because sometimes people will say, like, I've got a number of clients they'll be like, oh, every time I have Bowen with you, I get so much color. And I'm always interested. I'm like, what color are you getting? Like,
yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's, it's always reciprocal though as well. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I think that's more your color. Or sometimes we're like, oh, well, actually, like I was really feeling the presence of, this plant I work with and, And so
I can see this.
Up sometimes conversation or, they'll be like, oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I can see this really evolving for you, Hayley, over time now that you're kind of really tuning in and being able to like you've been having these experiences for so long, but not really recognizing the connections. And I'm so excited to see it evolve.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Cool. Now, I know that your beautiful clinic space, you've called it Our Healing Place. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And I read a beautiful prayer that you use to kind of open the space when you see people. And I'd really love to finish our conversation if you don't mind reading that prayer for us. It's such a beautiful, some beautiful words.
Yeah, I can do that. Of course. It's, I feel like it's not fully mine. It's come bits and pieces from, all different people experiences, like you just kind of build your little repertoire. I'm just going to pull it up because I'm still a bit nervous being just.
Of course. You're right. I love that you have it on the wall.
I've got it on my wall.
I love that.
All right. I just call it my morning prayer for the clinic.
Beautiful.
We all rise. I hold a space for healing to occur, and the natural feeling and invitation is for people to step into it. Healing, a return to wholeness, unfolds naturally. The words that need to be heard are spoken, and the words that need to be spoken are heard. I'm a conduit for love, for joy, for healing, for wisdom, for renewal, for regeneration, for the miraculous to unfold in all aspects, all timelines, and on all levels. And so it is.
I'm so glad you tuned into this episode of Self-Care with Herbs, a segment of the Elder Tree podcast. The Elder Tree is a non-profit dedicated to putting the medicine in the hands of the people through grassroots herbal education and earth skills, weaving a strong community of herbalists, healers, and plant folk in Australia. If you'd like to dive a little deeper, you can head over to our Patreon, the Elder Tree Trove, to access special content from our podcast guests. I hope you found something in this episode that has inspired you to begin to lean into those plant allies and to experience your practice of self-care blossoming and blooming. I look forward to sharing more ways you can weave plant medicine into your days next month.